Hi, I'm Milesy, and today I'm going to show you how to take a piece of embroidery like this and frame it in a circular hoop like this. And it's pretty easy. You need obviously your embroidery and your hoop. You are also going to need a fairly large needle. One of these upholstery needles will do just fine. You need some scissors. You need some good heavy thread. I like to use pearl cotton because it's pretty sturdy. You also need an iron, which is over here out of the way so it doesn't burn me, and you'll probably need a towel. The first thing that you'll want to do is take your embroidery and just make sure that it's washed and nice and clean. And this is because you don't want a whole lot of finger grime on there, or if you use a water-soluble pen to do a grid, you want to get that off. And you also don't want to have starch in your fabric, so you want to get as much of the starch out as possible. And once you've done that, you're just going to let it dry face down on a flat surface, probably even on a towel until it's dry. Basically, that's all you need to do there, and then that's when we can actually start the process of getting this framed. So the first thing we want to do is get our iron. It's very hot, be careful. And just iron our piece face down on a towel. Probably, I like to use a towel, it's just safe. But any flat surface will do that won't catch fire or burn or melt. And you want to be very careful that you're not doing this while the fabric is still wet, because the dyes in the floss can potentially run, and we don't want that. Even DMC floss will run and bleed, so be very careful. Make sure that your thing is completely dry before you iron it. And we want to do this to get all of the creases out. Even if you're going to be framing this in a hoop or a frame, doesn't matter. You want to make sure that it's ironed and nice and smooth and straight. And we'll put that over there, out of the way. And there we go. Now that the piece is flat and has no more creases, we want to get our hoop. And you want the hoop to be marginally smaller than your actual design. And as you can see, my design isn't actually round, but that's fine. It doesn't have to be. And we are just going to fit the design onto the hoop. And we'll have to open that probably pretty far because this is a fairly thick piece. And I think it wants to go out even farther than that. There we go. And be very careful that you're not tearing or breaking anything. And you don't want this to be so tight that you're going to be pulling the fabric awkwardly, but we just want it to get in there. And we don't need the outer hoop very tight at all, just tight enough to hold it where it belongs. We'll get everything off of there. And now we have the piece in the hoop, how we want it framed, just like that. And we're going to take our scissors now and just roughly cut around, leaving a good inch or two along the edge. And it doesn't have to be perfect. We are just going to trim off everything we don't need. So there we go. Now we have this, and it doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be enough to hold the thread when we start to string it up. So now what we want to do is take our thread or our floss, your yarn, whatever it is you happen to like to use. I like to use this stuff. And we're going to take a little bit more than we probably think we need, because it's easier to be able to do it all at once than to have to come back in a second time. And we're going to take both ends of our thread, just like this, and put them both through the needle. And pull them through probably about halfway. Now that we have that, we'll put the needle through about a ½ inch or so from the edge of the fabric. Pull it not quite all the way through. And we are basically going to be doing what amounts to a loop start, just so that we don't have any excess knots or nastiness on the back, just like that. Now that we've got that done, the thread is secured, so we're just going to do a very simple little stitch going like this, all the way along the outside of the fabric. And we're not going to pull it tight just yet. If we pull it tight right now, what's going to happen is it's going to get very difficult to actually see what we're doing. So you just want to keep a somewhat even line between the fabric and the hoop here. Again, it doesn't have to be perfect, but the more even it is, the easier it will be later on. And at this point, it's a good opportunity to trim off anything else that we don't really need. So there's kind of a corner there, and the rest looks pretty good. So at this point, we're going to draw it tight. And we don't want to pull it so tight that it can't move around too much, and we don't want to break the thread that we're working on. And we also want to make sure that we're not tearing up the fabric too much. We just want to have it tight enough to actually hold on. And now, this is a smaller one, so it's going to be a little bit more difficult, but that's fine, we can do this. We're going to go through that first hole and come out through the middle, just like that. And then we're gonna pull it pretty tight. And now we'll find the next one. Here it is. And we'll pull that through underneath that first stitch. Just like that. And over here where there is no stitch right here, and we're just going to work this through in the opposite way that we did before. So every time there's a stitch going under the fabric, we are going to stitch over, and every time there's a stitch going over the fabric, we're going to stitch under. And you'll want to use the same holes as much as possible, just so that you're not putting too many new holes in your fabric, especially with these big needles like this. And just make sure you're pulling the fabric tight. That way you're not losing too much tension. I'm going to go through here. And each stitch will get a little bit easier to hold the tension. So there we go, there's that one. Find the next. And we'll just continue on this way. Okay, now that we have the back all done up, it's not very pretty, but that's fine. We're just going to take a loop right here, and we're going to try to get the needle through it. There we go. It wants to. And we're just going to tie this off really quickly, just like this. And we'll do this a couple of times to make sure it doesn't come out. Come on. You know you wanna. There we go. And we can cut that off right there. And the rest of this stuff we can just kind of try to tuck in underneath there as best we can, but this fabric is a little bit funky, might not actually hold. And then now that it's on there, we can take off the top hoop, get all the fluff off of there, and actually focus on getting this hoop a little bit more centered so that we can see what we're doing. There we go. About like that, I think, is how we want it to look. We'll just push that through, and to give it some texture, I like to push the bottom one, or the inner one rather, through about halfway. And that way it pops up really nice and just gives the overall piece a little bit of texture. And we can tighten it a little bit more. And it makes it easier for this thing to hang evenly against the wall, because that puffy bit right there in the center is now behind the outer hoop. And there we go, pretty easy. Pretty much anything can be framed in a circular hoop in no time at all with just a few little supplies. But I hope you found this helpful and informative. If you have any questions, please put them down in the comments below and I'll get to them as soon as I can. But for now, I'll see you in the next one. Bye!